I got record now, and let me pull this up, and then I'll do, I guess, the clap thing, which isn't necessarily necessary. You're going to go over last week, correct?
Yes.
All right. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Point Shavers. What are we doing? Hold up. I'm going to redo that. What do we call Point Shavers? I mean, I know we're called Point Shavers. Welcome back to Point Shavers.
To be a week 4 recap.
All right, here we go. Well, are we doing two separate, or are we going to just combine it and go with it?
I think we just combine and go.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to Point Shavers, and this is our Week 4 recap and our Week 5 predictions. In the essence of time, we are going to do it all at once because last week, as hot as we have been, was not so hot. Though we're still above 50%, not so hot. So, Blake, what do you think, man?
Yeah, this is like a BOGO, Lloyd. You get to buy one, get one free. All these picks, you're gonna get them for free today.
Yep.
Last week was a little bit of a tough week. Just recapping a little bit, some of our highlights and lowlights. We had a couple losses against the spread as well as the total. That would be the Pittsburgh Indianapolis game. We took Pittsburgh minus the 1.5 and under 40.5. Ended up being a high scoring game that Indianapolis took over late in the second half. That one cost us a little bit, and then the other one we took a double loss on was your Buffalo Bills. Man, they got kind of shut down against Baltimore. We took the over 46.5, and we took Buffalo getting 2.5 on the road there, and it did not work out for us there. We did have some wins. Both of us hit our prop lock of the week. You had Dak over 1.5 touchdowns. I think he had that in the first quarter, so that was a pretty
Yeah.
easy win there for you last Thursday.
Did that
And I had
quick.
Aaron Jones over 13.5 rushing attempts, and that was an easy one as well. He had,
If I'm not mistaken, though, Blake, I think that's where he topped out at. I think he had two touchdown passes, I
yeah, I
believe.
think you're right. Yeah,
Yeah, and that's also tough for me because I realize in this kind of betting world, you kind of got to leave your favorite teams to the wayside if they're terrible. But I am a Bills and Steelers fan, first and second, and took a bath on that one, I guess.
hey, it happens, man. But overall, we were still above the 50%. We're at 53% with 18 wins, including our 2 prop wins and 16 losses last week. That brings the point shaver total overall record to 109 and 87. So we are 22 games above the 500 mark. So really well done so far this Lloyd. So far this season, Lloyd. Let's jump right into to week 5. Lots of really good games this week. A lot
Yeah.
of tight spreads on this one. Only a handful of spreads were even over 4. So I mean, you're looking at I think 3 spreads are over 4. So a lot of tight games this week. Let's start laying down some knowledge with that Thursday night game, Lloyd. You got Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Atlanta's going to be giving up 1.5 points, and the total is 43.5. What do you got on that one, Lloyd?
Well, it opened at 3. Where's it at now? I'll bounce back and forth because I don't have this pulled up. Where do you have them at as of today?
Atlanta minus 1.5.
Okay, so well, here's what I can see. Majority of the public is taking 81% of the bets is taking Tampa Bay. For me, I'm still kind of this leaning towards Atlanta. I think Kirk Cousins is there. They do have some offensive weapons, though. It is at home. It's in a dome. All those things aside, I mean, there's some leanings there towards Atlanta, but I actually think Tampa Bay is going to take this one. I think they're going to cover the spread. There's a lot of people that are kind of leaning that way. I mean, they played back and forth last year. They played 2 games. It's funny that Tampa Bay won at Atlanta and Atlanta won at Tampa Bay, so it's kind of they split it like that. They're usually fairly close. Both those games was within 3 and 4 points. So, as a matter of fact, they're both within 4 points. So 29-25, 16-13. Excuse me, 3 and 4. I was right to start with. I'm taking Tampa Bay on that. I think they cover the spread at 1.5 and the over under. I actually think it's going over.
Think it's going to go over the total.
I think so.
Excellent. All right. So the next game we have is going to be the New York Jets at the powerhouse Minnesota Vikings, man. The spread on this is going to be Minnesota giving up -2.5 at home, and the total is going to be 40.5 on this one. I look at this game, man. I see one defense that should have been really good this year. Talking about the Jets, we kind of thought their defense would be really formidable to go against all season. It's been kind of hit or miss, honestly, depending on the week whether they show up or not. Um, I think I'm going to have to stay with Minnesota here. Rodgers looked a lot better last week or 2 weeks ago for the Jets, but last week was a bit of a struggle with them. So I'm going to ride the hot hand here. I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings -2.5. And I do think there'll be some points scored here. So I'm also going to take the over at 40.5 here.
I'm also in agreement. So I don't have to add my thoughts because it's exactly the same. Uh, by the way, Buffalo killed me with these exact sentiments last week, but Minnesota is a hot hand. It's at home. They're undefeated, and I just don't think New York has got it. So I agree with both of yours.
Beautiful. Lloyd, next we've got Carolina traveling up to the Windy City in Chicago. Chicago's going to be -4 at home, and the total is 42.5. What are your thoughts on this semi-snooze fest?
Well, I mean, percentage of bets are going to Carolina, which is really a crazy thought for how they started. But I guess Andy Dalton has people on a different high. I know, but I still don't. I don't. I just don't know if I totally buy it. What did you say the spread was for that one? I'm
I got
still looking at the
-4
opening
here.
line.
Yes,
What is it?
-4 for Chicago.
-4. Honestly, Chicago's defense is pretty good. Caleb Williams throws for a higher percentage, but he just doesn't. He didn't put points on the board. But they are playing Carolina, which I know Andy Dalton gave him a little spark, but at this point, they're still Carolina. They're going to score some touchdowns, but I think Chicago wins this. And what's the over under on this one, Blake?
42.5.
I think I'm going to take the under on this. I'm taking Chicago to cover and the under.
I definitely agree on the total there. I think it'll be a lower scoring affair. So you've got Chicago -4 under the total of 42.5.
Yeah.
Our next game that we're going to be choosing is actually a game I think is going to be a hell of a game here. You've got Baltimore traveling to Cincinnati. Baltimore on the road is a favorite of -2.5, and you've got a total of 50.5 points here. I mean, a couple weeks ago, you'd have thought the Bengals may not score 50 points all year. The last couple of weeks, man, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, that offense is really starting to click a little bit. Baltimore, they looked really good against Buffalo last week. Not to bring up some tough memories for you there, but Baltimore looked really solid last week. I mean, they've had great halves all year. I think last week was the first time they've kind of put together two good halves, and I expect more of the same from Lamar Jackson, from Derrick Henry. They're starting to really lean on Derrick Henry to be a catalyst for that offense. I like Baltimore giving up the half point under a field goal at -2.5. And I think there's going to be a ton of points scored here. I'm going to take the over 50.5 as well. What are your thoughts on that, Lloyd?
Baltimore went nuts last week. Derrick Henry. I know it's just one week, because sometimes I'll jump on a bandwagon of somebody who's pretty good. But I don't know. I think Derrick Henry is rolling right now. I
Yes.
saw these whole videos about how he takes care of himself and his workout regimen and his routine, which is why I mean this guy he's a beast and he always has been, still is. I agree with everything that you just said. I mean, my heart when you can't live in the past, you got to live with what the numbers are now. You're like, oh, Cincinnati at home, oh, they got to be good. But they're just not there. They will score some points. Baltimore will allow some points. Sadly, they shut out Buffalo. Not shut them out, but it was bad. It was lopsided. But I do take Baltimore with this one, and I believe it'll go over also.
Okay. Man, you're getting all the snoozers today, Lloyd. We got Miami traveling up to New England. New England is a 1 point favorite at home, and the total is 35.5 here. What kind of wonderful insights can you give us to spruce up this snoozer?
Listen, it is a snoozer, I believe overall. But I still believe kind of in New England in this. Miami, they're not going to have any offense. They don't have anybody to throw the ball. They have dynamic receivers and they have a dynamic running back. But if you can't throw the ball, you can't run. If you can't run, you can't pass, and you just have to guard the run. I feel like I don't know. I actually like, this is crazy talk. I like New England. I actually like New England, but the over under 37. The other two snoozer offenses. I mean, there's all kinds of ability there, but I just don't see it. I think it goes under. I mean, I think it's a score like some kind of odd 17-13, 17-10, somewhere in there, 13-6. I think New England and will cover and the under.
I totally agree there. I also took New England minus the one there, and I think it's going to be like you said, a kind of a weird total, maybe like a 16-12 type game, something like that. It's going to be an ugly one. I think weather may be a factor in this one as well, so definitely agree with you on that one. Moving on to another game that could be a really nice matchup here. We've got Washington at home taking on Cleveland. Washington is giving up a field goal as a favorite there, -3, and the total is 44.5 on this one.
Can you
Man, I've
imagine? Can you imagine 2 weeks ago you talking about this game? I would have called it a snoozer, guys. I guess Washington is good. I guess Jaden Daniels is for real. I never acted like he wasn't. I wasn't trying to act like that. I just meant he was a rookie. Washington had a terrible defense. What a crazy thing that 4 weeks can do, for a
it's
team.
wild, man.
So
I've got to start believing in Washington.
I mean,
Man, Jaden Daniels, he may be a top 3 fantasy quarterback. I know we don't typically talk about fantasy, but if you're looking at just guys that can get it done on rushing the ball and throwing the football, he's
yeah.
tough to beat right now, man. He really is.
And it's at home. And Cleveland, as we know, once again, you can't live in the past, but people I know are like, oh, well, their defense, they got these guys. Miles Garrett, he's going to. I mean, the other day, whatever the game was, we were analyzing, you're like, oh, they got to deal with Miles Garrett. I
Right.
know. I get it. But sometimes they have off years. And right now, Washington, they're 3-1. And behind Jaden Daniels, crazy talk. He's a rookie, but Cleveland and Deshaun Watson are really, really struggling like a lot.
Yes,
Uh,
they do get David Njoku back this week, which I think will help Cleveland a little bit. But for me, I'm still taking Washington minus the 3 points.
yeah.
I think it's going to be kind of a lower scoring game. I'm going to take the under on 44.5. Washington exploded last week. I think they do have a tougher defense that they're going to be playing against this week in Cleveland. So I will take Washington minus the 3 and under 44.5. What are your thoughts on that one?
I'm agreeing with that also. But yeah, that's my take. I don't think they have a dynamic offense. I'm not trying to change your mind. I don't want to sway anybody, but this is one of those matchups where the final score could end up being 28-21 or something stupid like that. The time
Absolutely.
that you're not expecting it. I'm just saying that I don't think Cleveland has been dynamic, so I don't even want to give them that extra bump playing in Washington. I'm going to take the under. I'm just saying this wouldn't be a shocker if it's one of those games that
Yeah.
covered the
Might,
over, but
might
I'm
be one of
taking
those bets you stay away from a little bit. Just but our pick is under. Lloyd, our next matchup is going to be Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've got Jacksonville favored at home by a field goal and the total of 46.5. Give us some thoughts on this game.
So you say, oh, you have, well, that's right, the line is Jacksonville favored. Indianapolis maybe has been a little suspect. I know their defense was supposed to be a little better. I think the majority of the public is taking this. The money percentage of bets is going with the Indianapolis. Not that much more though. Still, it's 51-48. This particular one, there's supposed to be stormy weather, so I feel like Jacksonville's strongest point would be their passing, assuming Trevor Lawrence gets it together. But over the past 3-4 years, he's a thrower. It's supposed to be kind of terrible weather. I think they're going to have to rely on the run. ETN is not terrible. But Jacksonville has not been cutting it. Part of me even thinks like maybe that the -2 for Jacksonville in this one. The only reason they're getting that too is because they're at home, right? I think that's where the split comes from. It's basically like 50-50 here. Their offenses have been terrible, but Magic Man Joe Flacco, Joe Flacco's there. I'm gonna do one crazy. I still don't think Jacksonville wins this thing. I realize it's going to be terrible weather. That's the only hindrance. But they also have they got Jonathan Taylor there, so I'm actually taking Indianapolis in this to cover the 3, and I think it's going to be under.
Okay. You're taking the exact same pick that I did. I was a little back and forth on this one initially, just because there are some injury concerns with Indianapolis. Anthony Richardson may not play. Jonathan Taylor is questionable as well. I think he will play. I'm not so sure about Anthony Richardson, but like you said, they got Joe Flacco, who's just the ageless wonder.
Yeah.
That guy just comes out and gets it done every week. So definitely agree on that one. Indianapolis taking the points 3 and under 46.5, which takes us to another really fun matchup here. We've got Buffalo headed down to Houston, and Houston is favored by 1.5 points here, and the total is 46.5 here.
Can I make one crazy prediction? And just a really off the wall crazy prediction. It wouldn't. Well, it's not a prediction. I'm just saying it wouldn't shock me. It would not shock me. And I don't know. However, it interweaves. However, it wouldn't shock me if Joe Flacco was Miami's quarterback for the rest of the year. Just to like get him through this hump. It wouldn't shock me if there was a deal done for Joe Flacco at Miami. Like, hey, we got real receivers. We needed somebody to throw them the ball. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, so. Let's say Ryan Fitzpatrick several years ago. He just kept coming in and just going to new teams every year and just slinging it down the field. It was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, he's not an all-time great, but he could throw the ball. So that's what they went with. All right. My apologies for I added that crazy thought. Where we at now?
We are at Buffalo at Houston. And for this one, man, Buffalo came out and, in my opinion, laid an egg last week. I know they played a really good Baltimore team that's starting to really get things rolling. And they're coming off a tough week here. They get an opponent in Houston who's had a really up and down year as well. Some games they come out and that offense looks like we expected it to, with C.J. Stroud slinging the ball all over the field. I think Joe Mixon's going to be back this week, so it should be a pretty good game. James Cook for Buffalo is running the ball really well. Josh Allen's finding his kind of very talented but yet unproven receivers. Those are starting to work out really well for him. I may surprise you on this one. I'm actually going to take Buffalo plus 1.5 here. I think Buffalo wins this game outright. I think they come in with an attitude, kind of like they did in that Miami game. And I do think there's going to be quite a bit of points scored here. So I'm going to go over the total of 46.5 on this one. So I'm going to take Buffalo plus 1.5 over 46.5. What do you think about that, Lloyd?
I agree with all that also, but I mean, it'd be easy to get down on Buffalo just because of the way they got beat last week.
Right.
But previous to last week, everybody thought Buffalo was the juggernaut this year. So, and as we all know, there's only one undefeated team ever in the NFL, and kind of two regular season, the Patriots, in the existence of since the NFL's existed. So, everybody's going to lose. Even the juggernauts lose. Even the guys that become champions lose, minus literally one team ever. And so, yeah, I think Buffalo's going to take it. It's not just because I'm a fan. That they've proven themselves to be a pretty solid team this year. I think it was kind of a fluke for Josh Allen to get destroyed like that. I still actually kind of believe Baltimore is a little suspect defensively. So, yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think it'll go over, and I'm taking Buffalo.
Excellent.
Plus 1.5.
All right. Well, Lloyd, give us your thoughts on Las Vegas traveling up to the mountains to face Denver. Who would have thought Denver would be a favorite ever? But Denver's favored by 3 here, minus 3, and the total is 36.5.
Well, 58% of the betting public thinks that Las Vegas is going to win, and I'm going to be honest. It's a division rivalry, but I'm going to be honest. I'm not seeing it. I don't think Las Vegas is going to. This is crazy talk because I thought Denver's the worst team in 17 years. First week, I mean, terrible. I'm like, oh, Nick threw 61 yards or something crazy like that. And so, I'm actually agreeing with the spread here. I'm agreeing with Vegas. I think Denver is the minus 2.5 favorite, and I think Denver's going to win this thing. But here's where it gets just a touch iffy because the over/under is a little low. But Denver has proven that they can score points.
Yes.
Monte Adams may not play this week, right? But at that total, oh man, that's a tough one. I'm going to take Denver cover. I think I'm going under with it.
You staying under the under?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
Where you at with that? Close?
Yeah, that total is just so low. I was a little nervous about the low total. For my picks, I went over on that total, but I could definitely see the under hitting there. That's probably another one I'd stay away from if I was going to bet these games. But if I was going to bet it, I would take probably the over. But I can definitely see the under hitting here, so I definitely support the under on that one. And I also took Denver minus the 3 points, so we're definitely in agreements on that one. So Point Shavers pick here is going to be Denver -3 and under the 36.5.
So this next one that you have coming up, are you looking at Arizona, San Francisco?
Yes, sir.
All right. So where are you at? Because I'm once again I'm looking at the opening lines. Where did it end up at currently?
I've got it at 7.5. San Francisco's favored by 7.5. I've got the total at 49.5.
Yeah, I mean New England. New England was -10 last week. I just like just crazy bet. Like that's a crazy number. And I also New England. I took it. San Francisco was home last week. They're at home this week versus Arizona. I know Arizona has some weapons. San Francisco defensively, they're not terrible. I mean, they lost maybe a game that they shouldn't have. I mean, maybe they're easily probably. Well, I mean, they lost, of course, but maybe they're easily 3-1. Maybe we talk about them in a different light. This particular one, most of the bets are going. 80% of the bets are going to Arizona on this one, and just because of the line, man, it's not far off of. Let me just tell you really fast. Just look, they played twice last year. San Francisco destroyed. They've owned Arizona, and this was at home, and Samuel's back, and of course McCaffrey's gone. Samuel, I'm actually going to take San Francisco on this, honestly.
Man, I can't disagree with you.
Makes sense.
I also probably like San Francisco, even with the spread being a little higher than what we'd typically see. I like San Francisco here. As far as the points, the over under 49.5. I think that's too many points. I
Me
think
too.
San Francisco
I
is
do
starting
too.
to get it figured out. I'm going to
I do
take the
too.
under.
I do too, because just based on that score, my assumption, based on that score, and their defense holds up. I mean, even if it's like 28-10, something like that, I just don't 28-17. It gets closer, but no, I don't think they're. I think it's going under.
I agree. So Point Shavers pick San Francisco -7.5 under the total of 49.5.
Yeah.
Next game is going to be Green Bay traveling to Hollywood to Los Angeles to face the Rams. Man, Seattle, they finally took a loss last week. Wait, last week. No, Seattle won last week. Sorry. No, they lost to Detroit. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's right.
So Detroit finally played the game that I thought they would look like most of the year. Goff went perfect. But I still believe in Seattle here. The New York Giants.
Not to cut you off, but we started with Green Bay, LA. So we're going to go to New York, Seattle.
Nope. I'm sorry. I was looking at the wrong one.
It's okay. I mean, they're side by side. I just was clarifying because you started with Green Bay.
We're Green Bay and Los Angeles Rams. I apologize. That is my fault. Green Bay and Los Angeles here. I think Jordan Love's going to come back this week. I'm a big fan of Matthew Stafford. I'm a big fan of Sean McVay. At home, I hate to bet against him, but I think I'm going to have to do it this week. I think getting Jordan Love back, the Packers receivers, man, their offense is young, is talented.
Hey, Jordan Love played last week, by the way. He played last week and killed them.
Yeah, he did great. So, I mean, Jordan Love is he's maybe a future perennial MVP candidate. So, give me Green Bay minus the 3.5. And I do think that I don't think that the Rams are going to be able to score a lot. So I'm going to go under 47.5. What do you think about the Green Bay Los Angeles Rams game?
I'm not trying to play devil's advocate. I'm just going to throw it in here. But the last 2, 4, 6 games they played, whoever was at home, that's who won. But but hang on. I said that because it's true. They've only played in Los Angeles the last 6 games one time. So
Green Bay's kind of dominated.
Yeah, probably. I know this it's in LA. I mean, they do have some offensive weapons, but I think they're they are struggling this year. They're 1-3. Defensively, Green Bay is pretty good. It's -3. Now, when you get that, the home points makes it iffy. It's probably going to be a little closer. I think I'm going to take Green Bay in this one, and I'm gonna take the over. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored.
Okay. I love it. All right, Lloyd. Our next matchup is going to be the one that I've already previewed just a little bit. You may have heard, but New York Giants at Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are -6 at home, and the total is 43.5. Give us your thoughts on that one, Lloyd.
Okay. Well, 77% of the people are taking Seattle. I get that. New York, I thought is suspect. They are 1-3. I don't think they're a good team, but this is League Neighbors, guys, for real.
Yeah.
They can get up and get down. Not winning, but Daniel Jones played out of his mind last week. Compared to how he's been playing, fantasy wise, I don't want to talk about it, but it's like double his projections. And so, but this particular one, Seattle at home, and it's like I blew it with Buffalo last week, but Seattle is at home. They've been pretty good, and New York is not the team. I do not believe is going to just roll into Seattle and beat them at home. I don't think that's going to happen at all. Actually, even at what did you say, -6?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to take Seattle for sure.
I agree.
Their last game that they played last year, and Seattle rolled into New York last year and beat them 24-3. New York is not any better now. They had a higher draft pick at wide receiver, but they're not any, so I take Seattle to cover, and I'm actually going to take taking the under.
The under.
Yep.
I love it. So Point Shavers pick is going to be Seattle -6 and under 43.5 on that one. Mark it down.
All right, now here's one. I said I have a second favorite team. You got your first one, and honest, this thing split right down the middle. It's Dallas at Pittsburgh. Dallas 2-2. Pittsburgh's 3-1. 51% of the bets are leaning towards Pittsburgh. It's at home. I get it, but let's remove feelings. Dallas does have a defense that literally could be dynamic week to week, whether they are or they're not. They can be dynamic every week. Pittsburgh has a good scoring defense. This one's tough because when you look at the line, what did you call the line at 1.5 or 2.5?
I have it at 2.5 right now.
2.5, and so now this is a. I know this is crazy, but this might be the most even matchup for me of the week. This is a good one. What's your thoughts on it? This is an old school NFL rivalry game right here.
It really is, man. And obviously being a Cowboys fan here, I know that we lose more than we win typically, it feels like. So initially I thought Pittsburgh just going at it because their defense is so good. Justin Fields is really starting to play better. Najee's running the football. Justin Fields is running it. George Pickens is catching it. It's Pat Firemouth is doing good. Dallas is starting to get a little bit healthier on that offensive side. But I just don't think they're going to be able to move the ball as well. I think they're going to be able to throw it just fine against the Pittsburgh secondary, but they're not going to be able to run the football, and it really makes them one-dimensional. I think that TJ Watt's going to be able to pin his ears back and go get Dak Prescott on it. So I'm going to take Pittsburgh minus the 2.5, and I'm going to say under 42.5 here. What do you think on it?
I'm just still saying it's just crazy talk to Dallas has so many. Well, to be honest, they don't have the greatest running back anymore. He's older, but Dak Prescott, he can still throw the ball, and they have CeeDee Lamb, but it's at home. I guess I'm going to take Pittsburgh to win this one, with the plus 1.5. And I think this game, where's the over-under? I flipped the screen.
42.5.
42.5. That's a crazy number. I think it goes over that, actually.
You're going to take the over there?
Yep.
Okay. Point Shavers pick is going to be Pittsburgh minus 2.5, and we took under the 42.5 for Point Shavers here.
Okay.
All right, Lloyd. Last game of the week, Monday Night Football. You've got the New Orleans Saints headed to Kansas City. Kansas City is going to be a 5-point favorite at home. The total is 42 and a half. Give us your thoughts on the Monday Night Football game.
Mm. Here's what's funny about the way NFL works is that the only like hindrance or the only like that the noise I made. New Orleans started off real hot. You're like New Orleans is the greatest team in the league, blowing people out. Kansas City they are 4-0, but they have struggled. They are on the absolute. This is a crazy thought also. For a 4-0 team, they're on a struggle bus every week.
They are. They're
At
squeaking
least
by.
at least for what the general perception of Kansas City, two-time defending Super Bowl champions. I mean that they're struggling, but they're still winning. And this one's at home. And honestly, Patrick Mahomes is very aware that he has played less than for 4 weeks in a row, and he knows it. And they're trying to put it together. And he is Patrick Mahomes because at some point he is going to put it together. Also, at some point they're probably going to lose, just historically, right? Two teams ever in the regular season, one throughout the playoffs, undefeated. Kansas City is probably not their year. They're struggling, but is New Orleans going to beat them? Honestly, I don't think so. I think Kansas City actually covers New Orleans. I don't want to totally bash them, but maybe they're just a slight flash in the pan. Side note, last time they played, New Orleans beat them, but it was at home, 26-24, just last year. But I think I'm taking Kansas City with this. I think Kansas City's going to cover. And Kansas City, sometimes their defense is suspect, right? So I'm going to take the over.
You said over?
Yep.
I definitely agree with you on the over, and I do think Kansas City ends up winning the game. It's impossible to. Oops, sorry about that. It's impossible to bet against Patrick Mahomes, but I do think New Orleans is going to keep it close. I'm a little nervous about the absence of Rashee Rice with his injury. I think Xavier Worthy is going to be a lot more involved in the offense. I think you're going to start to see Travis Kelce get a lot more targets. But you've got Pacheco out. You've got Rashee Rice out. So some of his weapons, speaking of Patrick Mahomes, are going to be out this week. So I'm actually
honestly come with the analysis there because that's actually a fact. Yeah, please continue. I didn't factor that in. Go ahead.
Yeah, but a lot of people are taking the under here. I still think points are going to be scored. I think New Orleans kind of gets on track here. If you can stop the front seven of Kansas City, you have a good chance to get some passing game going. So I still like over the total there. But I like New Orleans here. But Point Shavers picks is going to be Kansas City -5, and we're going to take over 42.5 there. That is our week 5 picks.
By the way, they do have Kareem Hunt, the way who's back. I'm not changing my pick, but I'm going to say this so you know. And this is dating back to 2004, so the last 6 games. It doesn't matter the winners. I'm just going to say it was within 2, it was within 3, it was within 6, it was within 3, 10, 7. That's the
wow.
Yeah. So they play pretty tight historically. But I just think. I think that Kansas City gets on track. Mahomes is one of those guys. He can throw the ball to anybody on the field. I mean, he hadn't had all-pro receivers for a few years in his greatness. He's created some guys that were good, but he didn't have just the greatest receivers in the league. So I think it's no different. If people are open and they can get open, he's going to hit them. So
for sure.
Yeah, that's what I think. Do you have any final words, Blake?
Man, I know last week wasn't the best week that we've had, but we were still positive, so I'm going to take that away. I'm very excited for this week. I know we've done a lot of research this week, trying to bounce back from a tough week, so we really put the work in this week. So I'm excited to see the fruits of our labor for the week. I think we're going to have a really good week. What about you, Lloyd?
Put a lot of work in this week. Yeah, so I think it's going to be. I think. Well, you know what's crazy is here we are. We're just some average guys, as we say, and we have above average winning ratios. And last week we were still above average. Well, maybe not above. We were above 500. Not our average, but for the regular betting public, we're still better than they were. Like so, and we were kind of mad about it. So
We were real mad about it, but you know what? That's because we hold the point shavers to a real high standard, real high.
anyway, yeah. So thanks for listening. Because if you recall, we did the week 4 recap and the week 5 prediction, and we'll get with you next week. And I'm excited for this week, and let us know what you think. Like and subscribe. Blake, you got anything before we go?
Hey, man, as always, don't bet it if you don't got it.
Point shaver.
Shaving points.